Hi, I'm Alicia Robinson, the Riverside reporter for the Press Enterprise, and I am here today with Riverside City Councilman Rusty Bailey, who looks to be the winner of the November 6th mayor's race. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit, Rusty, today about some of the things that you're going to do now that it looks like you're basically going to be taking the gavel in early December. So thanks for coming in.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, the transition, from Mayor Ron Loveridge to you. And Mayor Loveridge has always been pretty open about his priorities and even his schedule. He makes his calendar publicly available so people know who he's meeting with and what he's working on. Is that something you're going to continue, that sort of openness, and how will
Certainly.
you kind of let people know what your initiatives are and get them involved?
Well, I think the campaign did that. Hopefully that's what the reflection was when it came to the vote. They saw my vision, they saw my priorities, they saw the projects and concepts that I had towards the future Riverside. And so that was a reflection of the vote that was cast last night, I hope. Definitely want to be as open as the mayor has been, an open door policy. I've mentioned that in the past, that I would have with staff, with the public, and I see myself continuing to be outside of City Hall, more so than inside of City Hall on some days and in some respects. And so I will continue to maintain and develop the relationships that I've created over this last year in all the neighborhoods that we walked, 20,000 doors that we knocked on, and it took a team effort. And so Team Bailey, thank you to those that walked and called and participated and stood out on the corners with signs and all the support and the prayers that went out for me during this last year. I thank you very much.
And then right now you have a pretty full life already with, you have a young family, you teach at Poly High School, you coach soccer, and then you're also on the council. How are you going to juggle all those responsibilities as mayor, and will you be leaving your teaching job or taking a sabbatical?
Well, again, I'll be doing the same thing I've done this last year with a little bit less intensity without the campaign involved. And so, the campaign is basically setting up a whole nother business and having employees and raising money. And so I won't have to do that, and I can focus on the issues of the city. And those are jobs, education, and quality of life. Those are the things that I've talked about, the priorities that I have going forward. So I'm going to finish out the semester. My students were excited to see me this morning. A lot of them didn't think I was going to show up. They thought I'd take a sick day or be celebrating. But 3 hours of sleep later, I got up and went in and celebrated with my government students, and they would like me to stay, and so I have to make that decision. I don't think in the long run I'll be teaching. I'll take a sabbatical or leave of absence after either this semester or at the end of the year, depending in some ways on my students.
Okay. And one of the things you talked about during the campaign was an idea to have sort of a system of streetcars that would run around between different locations around the city. Tell me a little bit more about that. What is it, and what's its purpose, and also how would it be paid for?
Well, initially the concept was through a bus line to connect the universities, and I've been talking about that and sat down with RTA several times, and the College Council of Riverside was really excited about that, and they had a focus group with RTA, and it just hasn't happened, and so the question is why? Why haven't we been able to connect the dots through the bus line? And then here comes Al Zelinka. Al Zelinka is our new community development director, and he's been working in Fullerton on streetcars and in the next phase of transportation down there. And wow, there it is. An idea across the country now that is gaining momentum is to invest in streetcars. It's a lower investment than high-speed rail. It has an effect that the intent again is to connect the universities and colleges from UCR down to University, Magnolia Market, Pierce to La Sierra, connect the commercial business districts, the Galleria, the Plaza, Brockton Arcade, City Hall, downtown, University Village, and thereby really feel and see the college students in Riverside.
What about funding for that?
Yeah, the funding obviously is the question, and there's a number of different mechanisms that you can use, whether it's bonds, revenue bonds, general obligation bonds, grant funds, because it is, air quality in Southern California is an issue. There's air quality, funding for for projects, transportation projects like that, as well as federal funding. In the past, we've been successful at receiving federal funding for things such as grade separations and other projects that take cars off of the streets and get people in a more clean and green transportation mode.
And now tell me a little about the Fox Theater. It reopened, beautifully renovated, almost 3 years ago. Has its performance met your expectations?
Every business goes through a crawl, walk, and run phase, and it takes about 3 to 5 years for businesses to set up and to create their base of support and their foundations. And so I see good things happening now at the Fox. The Gin and Tonic, Gin Blossoms, that was a music group in the 90s when I had some money to spend on music and bought CDs. So you see some new groups coming to town through the Fox. You see a higher audience level, and you see some different acts coming through. And so I think that there is bright light ahead of us with the finish or completion of the Performing Arts Center, not just the Fox Theater. But now we have the Black Box, we have restaurant space, we have a parking garage adjacent, we have outdoor seating and space to do events. So I think that there is going to definitely be a new even rebirth of that space in that area. You got the School of the Arts across the street that'll be coming online in the next few years. And so as we continue to build as the City of Arts and Innovation, that's going to be the hub of our arts and
right. Well,
theater.
I haven't seen any incredibly recent numbers, but the numbers that I have seen actually showed that the Fox, the theater, was not filling up. They were not really selling. They weren't selling out very many shows at all, and that they had fewer bookings than they were originally targeted to have. I mean, what direction do you want to see the Fox go in the future, and is that going to require maybe some different management?
There's always room for improvement, and we need to find ways to make all of our assets successful and bring a return on investment with the public dollars that we use. So the Fox is no different from any other investment that we make. We want to see a return on that, and if it's not happening, then definitely we want to look at if it's a management issue or if it's the foundation. We need to get the foundation involved in supporting. Is it a nuts and bolts issue, operations? What are the problems? And so that'll be something that we can continue to look at. We've got great staff on board. We've got new leadership that's coming online, whether it's the city manager, been in office over a year now. He's got new economic development staff. So I think that there is always room for improvement, and we're looking for great things to come out of the Fox, just like any other public investment that we've made.
Okay. Well, let's talk briefly about the city's policy for non-emergency ambulance service. For those who may not recall, it's an issue of the way the city's policy is written has essentially resulted in a de facto monopoly for one company, even if that wasn't the intention. That's been the result. And now this was something you called for the council to have a workshop on the policy almost a year ago that still has not taken place. And you also talked about it, as did the other candidates for mayor, in some of the candidate forums. And the consensus seemed to be that there needed to be a change in the policy. So what are you going to do now to move that issue forward?
Well, we're still waiting for the workshop. And that's something that the staff is going to bring to us. They said it was going to happen in the fall or the summer. So we'll continue to ask staff to look at the best practices across, the country. The county has made a decision to keep AMR for the next 3 years, right? So the contract remains. So we have to follow in line with what the county does, and we're going to continue to look for improving the contracts that we have. So if there's an issue with the AMR contract, we'll definitely fix that. As we go through the workshop, we'll find out what the policies and practices are that will meet the needs of Riverside residents, and that's what it should happen, right? We want a contract that best meets the needs of our residents.
Yeah, but I mean, if you asked for a workshop, you're a council member, and now you're going to be the mayor. Yeah. Doesn't the staff work for you? Shouldn't they bring you something when you ask for it?
Certainly, and I've asked. and they've told me they're working on this workshop. There are some legal issues that are a part of this, and so some things have to be resolved in that realm before we potentially could have a workshop. So there's things that are out of the council and mayor's control sometimes, and so you have to wait, just like the court system with this, the marijuana issue we have going to the Supreme Court. We'll wait and see what happens with that as well, right? I mean, there's some things, policies that different layers of government, different levels of government, or different branches of government have to vet. And so definitely, yeah, I've asked. The workshop will come back at some point when staff has done their work and when all the legal issues are tied up.
All right. Well, we'll revisit that one another time.
I'm sure we will.
Another thing that you talked about as a council member and during the campaign was action parks, which is basically parks for skateboarders and BMX riders and other kinds of active sports that a lot of youth are interested in. You didn't get a whole lot of traction with the rest of the council and on creating more action parks, and that's also something that there doesn't seem to be funding for. Is there anything you can do right now to try to advance that?
Well, I mean, some of that work is in the bike infrastructure that we have, and the Charles Gandy, the consultant, the national level consultant we had, and came out from Long Beach, best practice down there. They are the bike capital of the United States now. It's on their city hall. And so we've received a grant. We've got a grant brewing, and we're going to improve the Brockton. I think it's the Brockton corridor is what Tom Boyd is calling for. So in terms of bike infrastructure, that's going to happen. Action parks, definitely, with whether it's BMXers or skaters, they have new skate parks. Since I've been on the council, we've improved Bobby Bonds, we've improved Hunt Park. That's one of the things on my list as a Ward 3 councilman that I didn't get to cross off, and so a little bit of disappointment there that I couldn't deliver a skate park in Ward 3. Hopefully, we can do that across the city in another park or another space. One of the grade separations, leaves behind some space there, potentially could be used for an action park. And always the money, is the issue. And so as sales tax and property tax continue to increase, hopefully we will see an increase to the government funding. There's also models out there that are pay to play. And we went over and took a look at Fontana, and we saw 2 parks over there that are run by a public-private partnership, just like we have at Endolka Park with the tennis center. So there's an opportunity there as well if we can find the right purveyor or contractor to run a skate park or a BMX park, that we could potentially do that in one of the public spaces that we have.
And now, speaking of city revenues, during the campaign, your opponent, Ed Adkisson, talked about how if he were elected, he would look to kind of try to rein in city spending. And I think, that is something that some residents are concerned about, is the city spending level. So as mayor, how involved will you be in the city budgeting process and in looking for ways to try to trim costs?
Well, there's always places to trim, and the mayor signs the budget. So his name is on there. The council, we have budget hearings, we have a mid-year budget review. We'll continue to look at fiscal responsibility as being, one of our number one goals. Obviously, economic development is the foundation now that the city is looking to create jobs from. And so as we create jobs, then that provides fiscal health, and we continue the economic climb out of the recession. And so, definitely intimately involved in the budget hearings, the budget process, reading, sitting down with the city manager, sitting down with council members to see that their priorities are, and we'll continue to do that together.
And then another thing you said during the campaign is that, similar to Mayor Loveridge's style, you said that you also would have a collaborative style as mayor and have that based on kind of consensus building. But a part of that necessarily will include dealing with some of the critics who don't always like things that the city does. And the relationship between City Hall and some of the critics has been a little bit contentious lately. So what will you do to, or how can you try to improve that relationship?
Well, I have an open door policy, and if they want to come and sit down with me one-on-one, I would encourage them to do that and encourage them to meet with their council members one-on-one. I think that's always the most effective way to communicate. I do that with my students. If you have an issue on your grades or with something going on in the classroom, come and see me. Let's talk about it. And so I would encourage them to do that on a one-on-one basis. Let's find out how to resolve the issues or solve the problems that you're bringing to the table.
Well, don't you feel like it's incumbent on the council and the mayor, though, to show a leadership role in that, trying to improve that relationship rather than, I think things have been kind of allowed to fester lately. Even if, not all the criticisms are necessarily on base, they're still residents and they're still voters, and they have sometimes legitimate concerns.
Certainly, and as I tell the classroom in the class on my board, to get respect, you need to give respect. So I think it goes both ways. I think that they need to understand how to be respectful in public. I would expect my students, if they were to come down and address the council, and they have in the past, to do that in a respectful way. They can speak for the 3 minutes. They can wait afterwards and talk to the council. They can send e-comments to us without any restrictions on every item in the agenda. So I would encourage more participation, as I have with e-comment and with my students, and engaging them in the process. And I've knocked on, well, I haven't, but the team has knocked on over 20,000 doors. I think I understand the needs and issues of this city through a year's worth of walking neighborhoods, all 26, and all 7 wards. And so if there's a few people that find issue with some of the operations of the city, then we can definitely sit down one-on-one and talk about those issues, and they're welcome to come to council and voice their concerns.
Okay. Well, I think this will be the last question because I know you're busy today. Now, this is the first time that the mayoral election has been held in line with the presidential election. How do you think that the dynamic of that may have affected the mayor's race in terms of maybe either partisan voting, or specifically in your case, did you feel like you may have benefited from a lot of younger voters who were turning out to, in a lot of cases, probably to support President Obama,
Sure,
who has very much an appeal to the youth? I mean, how do you think that whole dynamic affected the mayor's race?
Well, obviously, voter turnout increased. Maybe even doubled from 25% in the initial election to whatever it was. I haven't seen the final statistics now, but is it close to 60% voter turnout?
Sure.
Okay, so the turnout was high, and that means that there are more voters, hopefully informed voters, not just voters, and whether or not a lot of them just want to look for an R or a D and make that decision. In this case, they had to be more informed, and they had to make the call or look at the website or have their door knocked on and ask or answer questions right there at the doorstep. And so I think the process worked well. I think that there was campaigning in terms of party endorsements, and so it didn't end up working out, I guess, for the partisan candidate, if you call them that, versus somebody who's declined a state, or an independent, someone who was working on the issues and is looking to represent people, not politics.
All right. Well, congratulations on the election results. Thanks for coming in, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again as things move forward.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the invitation.